In this video, we're going to create two different lead sounds. We're going to create this one by Sash called Xpander and System F out of the blue. And the first one sounds like this. And the second one, System F, sounds like. Which you're probably familiar with. And we'll jump straight into it, initialize preset, and we start off with the standard saw wave, which is this one already loaded. And we're going to do our first envelope, which is going to be a short one, and we're going to take the sustain down to about 4 o'clock, just slightly, release to 11 o'clock, and we're going to have the decay ever so slightly there. Next, we're going to have a second envelope to control the filter. So if we go on to the second envelope and have the decay at about 11 o'clock and sustain all the way down and release, just a slight bit of release on it. Then I'm going to detune our oscillator A, and I'm going to put unison of 7 and just detune that slightly. Then on the second oscillator, I'm going to activate that. Again, we're going to have a saw wave, and I'll take the fine tune down to about -16. It doesn't have to be exactly 16, it can be thereabouts, and we'll go up 1 octave. So we've got this. So we've got the main sound there already, bringing in all the harmonics, and now we'll run both A and B oscillators through the filter, and I'm going to go down to miscellaneous and choose the Scream bandpass filter. And now I want to double make sure I switch my oscillator B on. So we've got both of those oscillators running through the filter. And then all the settings on the filter, I want to put about 11 o'clock. So the cutoff, the resonance, the drive, and the scream, all bar the pan and the mix. So now I'm going to utilize my second envelope and drag that onto the cutoff. I'm going to play with the cutoff catchment area now to try and get the right frequency, which is roughly about there. And I can also open that up a little bit if I want to, just increasing the release a bit and the sustain. And then we move on to the all-important effects, and the first one I'm going to put on is the filter. I'm going to take an LFO and I'm going to assign that to the filter cutoff. And we need to make sure the BPM is unchecked and take the rate down a bit. So that'll sound like this, which sounds a bit too mad because we've got the rate fully up. So we want to bring that rate down a bit so the LFO doesn't affect the filter too harshly. And then I'll start bringing the sound back by bringing in the resonance, drive, fatness. And all the time I'm just working on our sound by fine tuning the cutoff on the filter on the effects and the cutoff on the filter on the oscillators. So the next thing I'm going to do on the effects is add a compressor, and I'm just going to increase the gain slightly on the compressor, but I want the compressor after the filter. So the routing of these different elements is quite important. So we want the filter there and the compressor there, and I'll just put a slight bit of gain on. Then I'm going to add some delay. I want the delay after the filter but before the compressor. I'm just going to take some out of the low end out of that one and put it onto ping pong. Take the mix up to about 11 o'clock. Then I'm just going to slightly bring up the level of the LFO there, so we're actually hearing our sound as soon as it starts, on which is directed to the cutoff. So the last thing I'm going to add on my effects chain is the reverb. I'll send that all the way to the end, and all I'm going to do there is just turn the mix up to about 11 o'clock. So the last thing I'll do is slightly increase that cutoff to about 1 o'clock there, just so we can hear that resonance come through a bit more. And as a final thought there, what we could actually do is add a LFO2 to the cutoff, and we can manipulate our cutoff via the LFO2 instead of having to manually do it. So I'll just drag that onto the cutoff there, take the frequency range down, have it start at sort of mid volume, and then I've got to uncheck the BPM and take the rate right down. As you can tell there, we've got that nice sweeping resonance coming through, and we can alter the shape of our LFO to suit our desire. And there we go, folks, that's how you create the first trance lead sound. Okay, so our second sound, which is this one. So we're going to go to initialize preset and we'll start from scratch. So envelope 1 will have a decay at 11 o'clock and sustain at about 3 o'clock. Just taking that down slightly. So we're getting that pluck sound again. And the second oscillator will activate. We'll have a saw wave on there as well. Octave up 1. And we'll take the detune down again to about -14, say. So we're getting the harmonics set before we get going. So I'm then going to add a unison of say 6 on both of those and detune those slightly. So around about 11 o'clock on the detune there. And then with this sound we're going to bring in the noise oscillator, and we're going to set this to the bright white noise setting. And then what I'm going to do is just select the sweet spot where I'm just bringing in the level, so we can hear a little bit more sharpness and texture to the notes. That's too much, obviously. So I'll just turn that back a bit, so we can hear those notes really cutting in and cutting through the mix. And the next thing we're going to do is add velocity to both our oscillators. So when the lower notes are playing, they will be slightly quieter. So I'll drag this to the level. I'll have the level about 12 o'clock and drag the frequency range to about 3 o'clock and do the same on oscillator B. So we're creating that sort of laser pumping sound you can hear there. And the next thing we need to do is turn on the filter again and run both the A and B oscillators through the filter, and also this time the noise oscillator. And I'm going to set that again to scream band pass. And again, it's a case of playing with the cutoff, resonance, drive and scream to bring that sound in. So I've got my cutoff about 1 o'clock there, resonance, a little bit of resonance, drive about 11 o'clock and scream about 1 o'clock. And then I'll just take the mix down a bit to there. Okay, so that's sounding good. Just want to open up that envelope a little bit. Just by tweaking that release there, I just open that one up. And then we're going to move on to the filter section. The first one is the filter again. And we want to create another envelope and create that as a very short plucky one. And I'm going to add that to the cutoff. And I'll just drag the catchment area down a bit. I'm just going to play with a bit of release there so it's not too plucky and rings out a bit. So I'm going to set the resonance about 9 o'clock. A little bit of drive. And again, I'm also going to add the velocity to the cutoff there. Just reduce that a bit. So we're getting that laser pumping effect. Then after this, we're going to have some compression. Drag that compressor over the filter so we get that last in the chain. So with the compressor, I'm just going to have a short attack and release. Threshold about 2 o'clock. And then I'm going to add a delay, which I want after the compressor. So feedback is okay where it is, and I'll just leave it on left to right at 1/4, and then maybe just roll off a little bit of bottom end. Next thing I'm going to do is add an EQ, have that after the delay. And with the EQ, I'm also going to roll off a bit at the bottom end. And then finally, again, we have the reverb. So I'll drag the reverb down over the EQ. And with the reverb, I'll set the size at 11, decay at about 11, and mix I want also about 11, bringing it in slightly. And there we go, there is our System F sound. And again, we can play with these settings on both the filter, on the effects section, and the oscillator to get the sound how we want it. And just as a bonus tip, another thing we could do is have another LFO. We could move the cutoff around so it's like so we could just simply drag an LFO to the cutoff there, uncheck the BPM and take the rate right down. So we create our tension as we go through the track. Or we might want to leave that LFO off and just manipulate the cutoff ourselves manually and record into a second audio track. So I hope that's been useful, guys. Just 2 more trance lead sounds we can use in our music there.